Hello, everybody. Welcome to the week one Fantasy Life live stream. We're taking questions. We're presumably giving some answers. We're going to talk some fantasy, some sports betting. I'm here with John Laghezza. John, you've been crushing the Betting Life newsletter for the past few weeks. Awesome job. It's great to have you on the team. And week one, it's here. I'm assuming on an excitement scale of 1 to 10, you're at a 12.
Yeah, if there's like how high are we going here, man?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just completely out of my chair. Like many other things in life, Mr. Freedman, they happen very slowly and then all at once, right? We were just talking about how even drafting fantasy teams was kind of overreactionary because it's like the beginning of the summer. Go out and go hang out with your family, go barbecue and stuff. Now, like go lock it down. It's almost time for pencils down, man. I'm really, really excited. And in case anyone's wondering, my first shameless self-promotion incoming, make sure you check out that newsletter. It is free, 100% free. And now we have a really cool subscribe button, which is really helping. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at John Laghezza. I streamline all my stuff. It'll take you right there. And again, man, we'll be doing pretty well using those snazzy charts we were talking about. What do you think about that, Mr. Freedman?
Yeah, the newsletter looks great, and the best part about it is I'm not writing it anymore. That's a win for everybody, especially me, but also everyone who's reading it. So yeah, thrilled to have you manning that ship and sailing, orienting, cruising the newsletter in the right direction. All right, we've got a number of questions here for week one, and what I'm going to recommend is that a lot of people, you can use our start sit tool. You can go look for yourself in rankings, but obviously if you have questions, we are happy to talk about them. The first one being Joe Burrow or Jaden Daniels. Look, I'm just old school. I love the running quarterback. That's like going to be my default. And I'm maximally invested in Jaden Daniels this year. Jaden Daniels to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels to go over his rushing prop, to go over his season-long passing prop. I wrote about him in Freedman's Favorites, the weekly fantasy article I do at FantasyLife. It's free. You can check it out. Jaden Daniels was one of the players I mentioned in that piece. I'm sticking with Jaden Daniels. Look, I know that Burrow has presumably an awesome matchup against the Patriots, but the Patriots defense used to be pretty decent, still has a number of the same players, so they could be good, and he could be, obviously, without T. Higgins, who's doubtful. Jamar Chase listed as questionable with the illness designation that was added on. Even if Jamar Chase plays, he's going to be limited. And the big thing is that the Bengals, as pretty big favorites, could end up running the ball quite a bit, which means they might not really even need all that much Joe Burrow in this game anyway. So I think you can look at Burrow and Daniels and say that they're roughly in the same tier this week, but I pretty cleanly have Daniels above Burrow. I think he has probably a higher floor because of the running ability, and I think he has a higher ceiling because of the running ability. And I think he's also got a pretty nice matchup against a Buccaneers defense that I think is overrated and a little bit suspect in the secondary. So those are my thoughts. Jaden Daniels, absolutely love him. I want him everywhere. John, what are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, we are totally simpatico. You nailed all the important pieces. It's hard to, use year-over-year defensive stats as being totally sticky, but a lot of the crew is still in place. New England's been very vocal. They're going to be defensive-minded. I think they were at 4.7 yards of play last year. They're a very stingy defense. They're also going to play defense by trying to keep the other offense off the field. Cincinnati has question marks right now. I think Chase is the real question mark. Fantasy players have no choice but to start him. But I wouldn't pay up for it in something like a DFS or where I have a great option, because doing my own custom projections, Matt, you can't put him in for the 85 or 90% snap load that you might have wanted to originally. You got to limit him. And now that kind of all works downstream towards Joe Burrow. Then again, you have the lack of running, maybe missing Higgins in a tough matchup. Yeah, no way. Let's get Daniels, who, again, the running floor is everything in fantasy, right? But the ceiling, like you mentioned, it's just what it is. The scoring is disproportionate for running QBs. He could go for 102 scores. That's not out of the range of outcomes at all. I think he easily goes for 60 or 70, and probably a pop for a touchdown. So, yeah, for me, it's definitely Daniels. let's wait and see what we get with Burrow, right? If Burrow ends up being great and the Bengals are firing on all cylinders and you bench them, well, you got a QB5 locked in the rest of the way.
Yeah. All right. So next question here, Jamar Chase and DJ Moore. And this, of course, is assuming that we see Jamar Chase play today. It's not like 100% locked in that we actually see that. Although I think that we probably do, but I would say like this decision could be made for you, by the time games kick off here. I still would go with, man. Okay. Looking at this, two things. One, you can look at the start sit tool. I'm looking at my own personal rankings here. Jamar Chase, I have at number 12. Of course, this is assuming that he plays. I might be a little bit aggressive on how I'm ranking him there. I'm on the higher side of all the fantasy life rankers. DJ Moore, I have at number 21. But I would say, and then like I'm on the lower side of all the fantasy life rankers with my ranking of DJ Moore. But like I still like both of these guys. I'm actually struggling to think of like the league where you are making the chase between making the choice between Jamar Chase and DJ Moore. I feel like there's probably someone else that you might be able to choose between. But if I had to choose, I would say I'm probably going Jamar Chase. But if you are in a situation where you just want to ensure you lock in points and you're kind of worried about the possibility of Jamar Chase really being limited, and the coaching staff has said that if he plays, he will be limited. So I should probably bump him down a little bit. I think I will do that whenever we're done with this live stream. If you're just looking to have the floor points, I think you go with DJ Moore. If you're fine shooting a little bit more for upside, then I'd say go with Jamar Chase. Your call on that.
Man, I was actually surprised. You know what? Again, some of the you do all your own projections, Matt. People will come to you and say, "Well, how come this greater than sign this or this less than sign this?" And my real first run doing this for the public, I'm getting this a lot, and my first thing's been like, I'm not saying I don't know, but like I put inputs into a calculator to keep me unbiased, right?
Mhm.
Because I think what people do, and a mistake, there's a good tip for people trying to do their own hand projections. You got to make sure everything adds up, right? That all the pieces of the pie equal 100. This is a mistake that I've made. Well, Jamar Chase is 120 yards, and Higgins, well, he's going to get 95 yards. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you have the QB passing for 560, and that's not going to happen. So I've been using the calculator to keep me grounded, and I'm still a little surprised. I have Chase by a hair, and that's even with me toning down the snaps because of the Higgins stuff, meaning if Higgins was a full go, maybe we could have settled around 40 to 50% snaps. I think now we're talking 50 to 60. And when he's on the field without Higgins, we got to be talking about a 30% target share. I mean, it's just kind of where it starts. Plus, they're creative with Chase. They'll put him in the slot. They'll use him in screens and kind of get him those yak opportunities. So I think I'm still going with Chase because of all the uncertainty in Chicago, right? Rookie quarterback, though I do think Caleb will be good. And there's a lot of mouths to feed there, too. We don't know exactly where it's going to go. So there's going to be a lot of that week one. I hate to be so milquetoast for you, Oracle, but that's where I am right now. We kind of want a little bit more information. I'm playing for more of the sure things right now.
Okay. Question of Chase or Coleman. I mean, I'm going to assume that this is Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume that this is Jamar Chase. It's got to be Jamar Chase. Like Keon Coleman is in a situation where he might not really even be the starting X receiver for the Bills in week one. Like that could end up being like Mac Hollins, right? Like Keon Coleman actually might not really even be in 3 wide receiver sets all that often. He could be a rotational guy. So I would say Coleman, he's got upside. We just kind of have to see what his role looks like in week one. But like we know what Jamar Chase's role in that offense is when he's fully healthy, even if he's not fully healthy with Higgins out. I mean, it's got to be Chase.
Yeah, 100%. Keon Coleman's role is way too indiscriminate right now. And they got positive news on Curtis Samuel. Like that might, if he was ruled out, that might have opened a pathway where, again, we're talking about a full complement of steps. Funny, Freedman, that you mentioned the name was Mac Hollins, that I really pumped the brakes on everything Buffalo in the pass catching room outside of, let's say, Dalton Kincaid. Because if Hollins is going to eat up those cardio routes and push Coleman off the field where he was going in drafts, we really don't want him. For reference, I think I have him as like a wide receiver 3. He's probably in like the low 30s right now. So, yeah, I'm not too high. I want to see it first.
All right, so we've got a Buffalo specific question: Khalil Shakir or Curtis Samuel? John, what are your thoughts on this one?
For me, it's going to be Shakir again. Man, I am such a boomer in my old age. Once you turn 40, people, that's what happens. You know, for me, it's continuity, it's preparation, and continuity and chemistry, and just man, there really is a mind meld that happens with quarterbacks and pass catchers, and I think we've seen a little bit of that from Buffalo. Plus, I can't remember. Maybe you have a better idea than I do historically. A team creating such a target void. Like if you listen carefully, you'll hear the sucking sound. Like all of the targets. Like gosh, Gabe Davis hit too. Like everything that wasn't nailed down left in Buffalo. So I think the one familiar piece in Shakir is going to at least get some looks. I know I've heard you talk about it too. We have to worry a little bit about his usage. He's not a pure X guy, and I don't know if we could forecast 90% route rates. Plus, Buffalo was talked openly about playing 2 tight end sets. So there are a couple hurdles, right, for Shakir also, but I do think he'll be the main focus in the wide receiver room.
Yeah. So before the season started, I wrote a piece on 11 fantasy stats from 2023 that might mean something for 2024. And one of the final players I talked about was Khalil Shakir, who had a 13.6% mark on yards per target last year. Just absolutely filthy and ridiculous stuff. Now, like that's got to regress. Obviously,
Yeah.
that regresses. That is like unsustainable year over year. But as you mentioned, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis are gone. Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel don't have an established connection yet with Josh Allen. So that means Shakir, who made the most out of his opportunities last season, he like legit has a chance to be the number one wide receiver for Josh Allen. He led all qualified pass catchers last year with a 73.3% receiving success rate. Like the dude was good when he was getting targets and when he was on the field. The big question for me is one, and you mentioned this, like the 2 tight end sets, how frequently they do that. I think they end up doing that a decent amount because they like both of the tight ends that they have there, and both of those guys have pretty distinct roles. And so I think they almost will use the 2 tight end set as their base. And so if they do that, then the question is Khalil Shakir on the field in 2 tight end sets? Like, do they trust him enough on the perimeter? And like, that's not certain. Like he's, I think, probably best used as the slot option within that offense. And maybe they just don't really see him as the perimeter guy. But at the same time, do they see Curtis Samuel as a guy on the perimeter either? And so
Exactly.
like if you're choosing between those two right now, if you're looking at the Fantasy Life rankings across the board, we have Khalil Shakir as the favored guy over Curtis Samuel. And so like I would be fine with that. That said, I really still like Curtis Samuel. Like I don't know. There's just something to where it's like it's hard for me to give up the dream for Curtis Samuel just based on how talented he was in college and like that one season he had with Joe Brady where he was, basically like latter day Percy Harvin. So interested in Curtis Samuel for the long term, but returning from injury, and Shakir does have the established connection with Allen. So I lean towards Shakir in this instance, but like they are fairly close for me. All right. So just for everyone who's joining in, Fantasy Life live stream, John Laghezza, Matthew Freedman. We are answering all of your questions, including this one, the best streaming kicker for the week. John, I don't know how into the kicker streets that you are. I probably think about kickers more than I should. Last year, I especially in the second half of the season, I started dabbling in kicker props. So I think about this stuff. You might have some opinions on best potential streamer for this week. I will say one guy who stands out to me, Jake Bates. I don't know how heavily rostered he is, but the thing is, he's one of those guys who is new to the league. And so I think in a lot of your sort of more casual fantasy leagues, your average fantasy player might not know who Jake Bates is, but he was a guy who played spring football, who has a massive leg, and then now he's with the Lions. So high scoring offense and going against the Rams, a high scoring game. 52.5 is the total that we have on the board here. If you're looking at the odds page that we have at Fantasy Life, I could see Bates indoors, high scoring game. Like I think he could get 3 field goals. Like that's very possible. And maybe 3 touchdowns is what we see out of that Detroit offense. And yeah, you could look at a guy who ends up maybe having like 12 to 15 points. Like I think Bates is top 10, a top 10 kicker. And then I will say also the kicker on the other side of that matchup, rookie Joshua Carty, almost certainly going to be on the waiver wire this week. We know that Sean McVay can be really conservative when it comes to going for it on fourth down or letting his kicker go out there and, like take the 3 points. And so just historically, if you've rostered the Rams kicker for the past like 6 years, you have been generally pretty pleased with the results there. So Joshua Carty, as someone who's almost certainly available on waivers, I would say either of those two kickers in that Lions Rams game, those would be options for a good streamer.
Wow! Don't judge a question by its cover. I would have never guessed we were actually going to learn something. I didn't know we were taking that serious. I didn't know we were taking that seriously. I didn't know that, and I was actually wondering, as a fantasy analyst, is it embarrassing? I don't know who these people are. Like, is this embarrassing? Because for me, it's been,
both rookies, both rookie kickers. So it's the kind of thing.
You really nailed. If there's any good analysis to be done, I think you nailed it. Listen, all kidding aside, team totals exist for a reason, right? So you want a good team total. And indoors, I think you mentioned is perfect. Indoors or good weather, I think that's very, very important. And other than that, you just kind of roll the dice. I've always been one. They just kind of stream kickers. We've all done do you want a really good team that scores touchdowns or one that don't? No one knows how that run out is going to go.
Right.
However, Matt, all kidding aside, knowing the tendency of the coach, that really is a big deal because those threes opposed to ones, they really do make a big difference. So that's as far as I'll go with kicking analysis. I think everyone's reached their limit with that.
Yeah, and one more thing I will say, actually, though.
However,
I got one more thing to say. What makes these two guys, I think, actually really great streaming options this week is you might grab them and be like, you know what, my kicker position is set for the rest of the year, because like these could be guys each week, especially Jake Bates, high scoring offense. Most of his games are going to be
the
indoors.
Highest scoring team this week? The highest projected team total, I believe, is Detroit.
Yeah.
And so home, indoors, yeah. That to be honest, right? If we're going to give an answer, to me, that's my answer for the rest of the day. That's the streaming answer. It is.
Yeah, and like you grab him, you might never need to pick up another kicker for the rest of the season, except when it's his bye week. So
that also goes to defenses. I think, again, not to get too into the weeds with things that are highly variant, but it is a good idea to look a little forward and to think, can this stick? Because sometimes with streaming defenses, that becomes more of a thing. Like you look forward and you don't want them the next week. Well, I might lean to the one that you can maybe get some continuation with because you might get disappointed or have to spend fab or something. All right, enough special teams. All
right, enough special teams. All right, so we've got a question on, would you drop someone like Rashid Shaheed for someone like Luke McCaffrey or Andre Iosivas? And so, that my general shooting from the hip inclination is probably not. Like I like Shaheed a lot, but the general thing also is that like the type of player Shaheed is very boom or bust. And so if I think like if you're looking for someone like Iosivas who is going to be on the field all the time, especially today, and who might be able to carve out a role within that offense, like, and could be sort of like consistently high floor, maybe you go with him. But like Shaheed just stands out to me so much because of like if there's one of these guys who feels like he could break a slate any given week, it is Shaheed. So, and I feel like he's already established as the number 2 pass catching option within that offense. Let me rephrase it, because Alvin Kamara is still there, but the number 2 wide receiver within that offense. McCaffrey would hope to be the number 2 wide receiver in his offense. Iosivas almost certainly will not be the number 2 wide receiver in his offense unless there's an injury to Higgins, which there is, but unless that injury sustains. So I think still go with Shaheed. Looking at our rankings right now, looking at the start sit tool, we still have him as the higher rated player this week. So I would stick with Shaheed.
Yeah, Shaheed, for me, to the moon. I was really high on him, hoping that he would have been that really efficient, explosive player as the 3 last year. Now, no Michael Thomas, no real viable replacement. I believe that he will at least get a chance to play out wide. Man, I couldn't dig up the stat in time, but I can assure you, I wrote this somewhere. I was splitting Shaheed's production. he's actually been very good out wide. Right. So sometimes we erroneously label these guys kind of slot wide receivers that they can't succeed. And that might not be the case. Now, we know Olave is going to get a ton of attention. Matt correctly labeled Kamara the number 2 weapon, which we know is going to get a lot of attention. That could be good for Shaheed. And he's one guy, one double move, and your fantasy week is set. Man, the Iosivas thing is interesting because what if Higgins is like a long-term injury and you think you're stepping into the number 2 there? I understand that argument, but I think, again, number 2, fast track. I also think Derek Carr has been – I think he's been wholly hand-waved and discarded, Matt, a little bit, where, he tried to play through some shoulder stuff last year. And we're really not fair to these guys, right? If you bang up your shoulder and you don't play, he's soft. Come on, man. But if you play through it and you're not 100% and you don't perform that way, also he's like a bum. I think Derek Carr is a replacement level QB. And I think we didn't get that when he was hurt. That's when we got those, 15 catches to Kamara games. Nobody wants to do that. So I think the Saints might be a regular offense. And I think Shaheed might be a regular number 2. And we might be looking back on fantasy draft saying he went just 2, maybe 3 rounds too late. I think he's got big potential. I wouldn't let him go.
Yeah. And one more thing onto your point of Shaheed with his inside outside versatility. Absolutely, he can play in the slot, but he can also win out wide because of his speed and, because of the way that they can scheme things up to move him around the formation a little bit to where he's not getting bumped, right at the line of scrimmage. So yeah, Shaheed, I think he has that versatility where he's going to be on the field most of the time. All right. I love this next question here. Where do you draw the line on starting Andre Iosivas? Best wide receiver you'd start him over, assuming 3 wide receiver and flex. So yeah, 3 wide receivers. So that's 36 guys right there. And then let's say, assuming 12-team league, and then let's say flex, maybe you start another 6 wide receivers at that point. So let's say you have, between 40 to 45 wide receivers who are going to be in starting lineups this week. And so the question is, Iosivas, is he one of those guys? Right now, I have Iosivas as my number 50 ranked wide receiver. And this is assuming that it is very probable that we do not see T. Higgins. Once we have some more confirmation on that, I probably bump Iosivas up a little bit. But so let's look at this. Adunze right now, I have him ranked number 45. Would you start Iosivas over Adunze?
Higgins out.
Higgins out. Let's assume
Higgins out. It's probably Iosivas.
Yeah, I think Iosivas, but I feel like that's kind of you're at the borderline of where you're thinking about it. Brian Thomas, I'm probably going Iosivas over Brian Thomas.
You want to see it first. I hear you. I do. I think you're probably right. That one, believe it or not, I may take the old analyst cop-out and say, what does your matchup look like right now? If I was way behind, I think I'd roll the dice on Thomas rather than Iosivas. I think the ceiling might be a little bit higher. Again, we saw that from Ridley, right? Week 1 in that new system, he blew up with the Jaguars. And if Thomas is any good, again, just attention going to Ingram, attention going to Kirk in the slot, attention going to Etienne. Maybe Thomas slips loose and gets by. But again, it is pretty close for me. Yeah, those are probably the names. And I think we're right. We're right in line. You said I had a Dunze 49. You said 45. So again, I'm actually feeling really good. I'm feeling really good about the first run of these projections. I was looking at, I think, man, let's put it this way. Where you got Iosivas, I think the comparable names, at this point, he's really just risen way above because of the pathway to playing time.
Yeah.
So it's either, right, you wouldn't play Jalen Tolbert over him, right? You're not going to go. And that's who's that, right? That's who's down there. Man, all
right. So I'm looking at names. I'm looking at names ahead of him, right? You're playing DeAndre Hopkins over Iosivas, right?
Yeah.
You're probably playing Joshua Palmer over Iosivas.
Oh, absolutely.
Palmer with the shot to be the number 1 receiver in that offense.
Absolutely.
Cortland Sutton, you're probably playing him over Iosivas. He's the number 1 receiver in his offense. Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba, those are 2 where I think you start really to consider Iosivas. So we're in that range. Lockett, JSN, Brian Thomas, Odunze, that's the range where I think if you go Iosivas, I think that's fine. But that's the conversation right there.
Yeah, banked up Lockett, I like JSN today
Yeah.
because he's been limited. I would play JSN there, but Lockett and Iosivas is not even close. I wouldn't play Lockett at all. I wouldn't.
Okay.
I don't think anybody should really be rostering Tyler Lockett. I don't think there's as much of a ceiling case for him.
Okay. All right. Next question here, bro. Hey, bro. Is Dallas winning or covering the points? Love this question because obviously we're fantasy analysts, but we're also betting analysts. And John just absolutely rocking it with the Betting Life newsletter. Everyone should be sure to check that out. It is absolutely free, so no reason not to do it. Especially because John, you've been on a hot streak looking at all of this stuff here, and so yeah, everyone be sure to ask us those betting questions if you have them. I like the Cowboys here. And it's not just I like the Cowboys because I'm a Cowboys fan, although unfortunately I am a Cowboys fan. But I have the Cowboys favored as 1-point favorites in this spot here. And so if you're looking at the odds page that we have at Fantasy Life, you see the Cowboys 2.5-point underdogs. You can bet them at, I believe, plus 122 is still available for betting the Cowboys as money line underdogs. That is a bet that I have in the free Fantasy Life bet tracker. Everyone should be sure to check that out. I have bets in there. John has bets in there. Yeah, I'm on the Cowboys on the money line. I think generally, if there's a team that is a small underdog, it makes more sense to bet them on the money line than against the spread. I say, like, if it's under 3 points, if it's 2.5 points like the Cowboys, then I think, hey, let's get them on the money line. So yeah, John, I like the Cowboys, but what are your thoughts on the Cowboys this week?
I do like the Cowboys, but man, I keep grinding all this cost per point stuff, and I think MLB may have broken my brain. Where I'm always trying to eliminate variables if I can. I'm just worried about again continuity and stuff. Plus the Browns defense. I actually thought you were going to mention all the splits. I was listening to you and Dwayne on the MB Fantasy Life podcast, which you should be listening to. Which, again, if you're not listening to that, there's at least one thing you're doing wrong in your preparation for real. But it's a lot of splits going on here. I'm not the biggest like home away guy, but they really are kind of screaming in this one. Cleveland defense last year at home was insane. It swarming, just splash plays, picks, sacks. It's just really, it was a headache to go against them. And then you have Dallas, which is really very hot, top heavy. I've described them as the horse drawing. You know that famous meme where the beginning of the horse looks really, really good, and then the rest of it looks like my child drew it. And that's what you got. CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, like world-class, maybe the best battery on earth. And then after that, so if the Cleveland is able to bracket or get creative and take away CeeDee Lamb, does Dallas have literally any other explosives on that team? My fear is not, especially in the backfield. So, like, I'm starting Dowdle this week. If I'm really deep, I'm holding my nose and starting Zeke. But I'm really looking for the under in this one. I don't think – also, on the Cleveland side, the reason why I think Dallas wins, I'm definitely afraid Watson's cooked and terrible. Like, there's a chance – he's dusted. Legit, we haven't seen him be good at all. We keep making excuses. It was the weather and it was injuries and it's like contract stuff. Yo, man, it's rubber meets the road right now. He's injured again, and I wouldn't touch the Browns. So I'm with you on the Cowboys, but I think we're going to feel safer to the under because there's a chance we don't see a touchdown in this game, you know?
Yeah, the under might be the best way to bet that. All right, so he's John Laghezza. I'm Matthew Freedman. For everyone joining, we are doing the live stream for week 1 of the NFL season here at Fantasy Life, and I know we've got a lot of questions here, mostly fantasy questions. We will try to get through those faster here. All right. Hello from Scotland. All right. Awesome to be. Thank you. Looking for a bit of upside. Need to pick one between Jameson Williams, Brian Robinson, or Rashid Shaheed. John, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, for me, it's Jameson Williams. You know, because it's the full complement of snaps with the ability to play break. And again, highest team total, and at home, continuity on offense, and we're looking for the step up. The other guys, not to say are part-time players, but we already described Shaheed feels a lot like Williams. So I think that's where I'd go. And we don't know the running role in Washington, right? We kind of want that more clarified.
Yeah, slight lean towards Jameson Williams there. So, but agree with you. I think those two are similar guys. All right, it's moot now, but would you have started Rice or Neighbors? Also, having seen Rice play, would that change anything? I already started Rice in my flex. Good on you starting Rice in your flex. Honestly, I probably would have gone Neighbors but I just like Neighbors so much. And I was a little bit pessimistic on what we might see out of Rice, given that we have like presumably healthy Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy coming in. But yeah, I guess I would have started Rice and I probably would have been wrong. But John, what do you think there?
I would have went Rice in this scenario. I'd rather have Neighbors maybe rest of year, but I would have taken Rice in this scenario just because the stylistics for Baltimore, they play a lot of too high, so I was expecting a lot of underneath operation from the Chiefs. And again, I just want to see Daniel Jones be a real quarterback because, again, the pathway to failure for the Giants is, the quarterback position.
All right, so next question here. PPR need to Hubbard, Najee, Keenan. What are your thoughts here?
Oh, Hubbard is, to me, not really in the same class, right? Yeah. Najee Harris, I know with Fields coming in, I had to go through them today, and, Tier, I had to knock down all those projections, right? You have to take down Najee's carries. You also have to take down his touchdown rate. You also have to wipe away almost any semblance of running back receiving. But at the same time, we have seen running backs score touchdowns, right? Herbert has scored with Fields at the helm. So I think you have to go with the, running back on a real running team that Pittsburgh O-line looks like they might be incredible. And then Keenan Allen, again, it's a PPR scam. But if it is PPR, I think he's got to pop to be the safety blanket. And every time there's a 3rd and 5, you might see Williams just turn right to Allen, win in a tight space, and you'll get 7 for 77 today, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Those two are in a different tier just in terms of our rankings. If you're looking at our start sit tool, those two are like, top 80. And I would say we have Hubbard outside of the top 20. So, I think going there. All right, next one, Ramondre Stevenson, Keenan Allen with the heel issue, or Josh Palmer if Jamar Chase is out. So, one of those three flex for PPR. Where are you looking?
Man, comparing apples and oranges is really tough, right? I think Keenan would probably be out. I'd probably, believe it or not, I'm probably going Ramondre.
Yes.
Because I've been telling myself this offseason, Ramondre Stevenson is going to be the engine of the Patriots offense. I'm actually glad they went Brissett, and that probably helps swing this. Because I think Brissett is kind of, I've described him as a stabilizing force. I hate Cole Guy's replacement level. It sounds like an insult. He's a stabilizing force, right? He may not be a force multiplier, but he's a stabilizing force. I actually thought the Browns with Brissett were way better than they were with Watson, not to kick him down while he's down, but if anyone deserves it, he probably does. They might be good. The Patriots just might be the most boring, slow-paced, vanilla offense, but if Stevenson's going to get 65% of the carries and 13% of the receptions, he should have a decent game. That's where I'd go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say in the rankings that we have, Stevenson and Allen are close, right? So I feel like this isn't like a total slam dunk either way, but I prefer Stevenson in this spot, especially because I think the Patriots are going to be super run heavy. Like they're going to want to try to shorten the game, control the ball as much as they can as underdogs. I know underdog, that's not a great situation for Stevenson to be in, but he does also have the 3-down skill set. And this is a very minor note, but Antonio Gibson was dealing with some issues, injury issues in practice. He's questionable. I think he's likely to play, but it just might mean that we see a little bit more Ramondre Stevenson this week than we ordinarily would have, and he could have that 3-down role. So even if the Patriots get down, which we would expect them to get down as big underdogs, he could still end up in PPR as a flex, providing some value here. All right, next question here. Khalil Shakir or Jameson Williams. I'll just say this feels like a mix of two different styles where it might kind of depend on what it is that you are looking for in your matchup, what you need. But Laghezza, what are your thoughts here?
I'm copping out big time. For me, this is depending on the matchup. If I'm behind, you got to roll with Williams because he's got a chance to go 285-2.
Yeah.
And I think Shakir is more like 763 and you hope you sneak into the end zone. Right, so if I need a dozen points, to me, Shakir is the answer. But if I need 35, I don't know if Shakir is going to get me there. I don't have the confidence this week. I'm not saying Williams is a 30-point player, but he's that style of player. Just real quick on this guy, you don't have to be a tape bro. There are certain players that move faster than everyone else. There's some 4D chess for you. Williams is unbelievably explosive. Get him in some open space on the fast track. He's the guy that I want.
Yeah, I mean, we have Jameson Williams slightly higher in
I
the
believe it. He should,
projections.
as a median, I think that's correct, though, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully I framed that properly. Yeah.
Yeah, it is close. So I would agree with you. If you're looking for the upside, I think you go with Williams. If you're looking for the higher floor, you go with Shakir. The thing that's really nice with Williams, he's playing indoors in the highest scoring game of the week. Potential shootout there. So yeah, do like Williams. I'd probably go with him in that situation. Next question here: Raheem Mostert or Chuba Hubbard? I mean, I don't think this one is really close. I'm going with the guy who led the league in touchdowns last year. That's just me.
Yeah, stop asking about
Yeah.
Hubbard. Just stop. Nobody,
Yeah.
you don't. Honestly, there's a very short list of players that you want over Hubbard. Like you're thinking about, like to me, it's like Zeke or Hubbard, right? That's you know what I'm saying. Just to give an
Right.
idea of where I'd be at when I'm starting to think, like, do I really want the starting running back for the Panthers? It would have to be like a solely touchdown option, and I guess you could squint and say Mostert is that. Yeah, but Mostert's the mostly touchdown option on a team that might score 5 of those or 6 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, to
All
me,
right.
that's pretty easy.
Yeah, PPR pick 2 from Olave, London, and Neighbors.
Ooh, tough
Yeah,
spot.
I mean, so I think London is one that you just kind of slot in immediately, and then this might be more of a question between Olave and Neighbors, but I think like I love Neighbors, but I mean Olave, like I'm just looking at the rankings right now. We have a tier break between London and Olave, and then Neighbors. So I think it's London and Olave for me, but like I can't really fault anyone for going with Neighbors. I think Neighbors is going to eat. I'm not saying he's Marvin Harrison Jr., but like he could end up having as many targets as we see Harrison have in Arizona. So yeah, I can see it. But this week I'm going with Drake London, going with Chris Olave.
Yeah, how did you do that, by the way, guy? Like, cheers to you. Embarrassment of riches to be choosing for those guys. I've seen them all go in the top like 20 overall in certain leagues. So yeah, I'd
Yeah.
go with you again. I think Neighbors probably is the lowest downside, lowest floor being tied to Jones, the most uncertainty with the first time connection, and again, Matt nailed all the upside points for the two that I'd go with. So man, you're gonna have a tough spot, Matt. If I'm in his position, and that's a choice I have to make every week, I'm probably looking to make a trade, right? I'm looking to trade somewhere else and create a must-start situation, opposed to this, because you're going to be pulling your hair out in this one all year.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine. I think my answer is I'm trying to start all 3 of those guys.
Yeah,
Somehow,
no
one of
kidding.
them in the flex, like however it is, it seems like you should be able to start all 3 of those guys. And if you can't, yeah, I think either you trade or you just know that
Yeah,
you've got
true.
strength on your bench in the event of an injury and you're just a little bit safer that way. All right, next question here. We'll assume half PPR, Brian Thomas Jr. or Ladd McConkey. So choosing between 2 rookies, and we've got them projected, comparably ranked comparably. So it's not as if there's one slam dunk here over the other. I would lean with Ladd McConkey. I think he's just probably going to have more targets consistently going in his direction, whereas Brian Thomas feels like he might be a little more boom bust. But yeah, that's just me. I prefer McConkey.
I think I would have went the other way. That I can't really plant too much of a firm flag, but I think the offense is a little better with Jacksonville, and I'm just kind of following the drum beats from camp that everyone seems to be really high on Thomas. But again, that and $2 gets you on the bus over here. So I'm not really firm. If I had to make the decision, that's where I go. Again, Miami's defense, I'm not sure I feel about the secondary right now. We're expecting a monster shootout down there in this one. So maybe I would try and attach myself to that fast-paced game if I could. I just think there's a higher ceiling, but again, I'm not really sold.
All right, so love this question here. If you had to put $1 million, $1
Oh, I know
million
it already.
on one player prop bet today, which bet would it be? Now, one thing to say, so I've got all my projections done for players. I might make some tweaks, based on news of like T. Higgins or something like that. But the projections are pretty much set. After this show, I'm going to dive into the prop market and start putting, a lot of my bets there in the bet tracker. So be sure to check that out. What I have in the bet tracker right now, I will say this is relatively unsexy, but John, you were on the prop show with me last year.
Love it.
Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown. CMC ATD SZN. It is Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown season. And he's bettable right now. I bet this at minus 165 at FanDuel. He's still like minus 190 at a number of books. This number in my opinion, should almost never be anywhere below minus 200. But I have this projected right now at minus 265. Routinely last year, this number was like in the minus 250s to minus 350s. Christian McCaffrey is scoring a touchdown. If you believe that the 49ers are scoring any points this game, it will be a Christian McCaffrey touchdown. So, and I know it's not sexy to say, hey, lay some juice on something, but in this hypothetical, if I'm putting $1 million on a bet, yeah, I think Christian McCaffrey is still significantly undervalued in the anytime touchdown market. But there are a number of other props. I'd say check them out in the Fantasy Life Bet Tracker. I'm going to be adding more. I have an article on the site that you can check out on some of my favorite props so far. But Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown, probably the one I'm looking at. John, what are your thoughts?
I think they did you a solid with that injury report. Like whatever they attached to that injury report got people a little scared of McCaffrey. I did adjust my projections down, but I did not adjust the touchdown rate down. Remember that? That's again, if he's getting 3 carries, they're the ones at the goal line, right? Yeah. So the event that you're looking for, like I wouldn't go over carries. I'd probably even be weary of total scrimmage yards if it's up over the hundreds. But yeah, anytime TD at minus 160, yes. I like that. Now, I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do and freak out, man. I'll try and do it quick. I couldn't help but talk about this before we even go. I had to have the producer, slap the bolt on my mouth.
It's coming, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Thank goodness for getting this one out. It's Greg Dortch season, everybody. I mean, I'm personally insulted by the line. I'm trying not to show it. Greg Dortch is listed at 2.5 receptions. I mean, the Rondale Moore experiment is over. He's off the greener pastures. Dortch is going to play every single down from the slot. The camp reports were absolutely glowing with the connection with Murray. And see, it's funny. This is where the betting newsletter is kind of helpful with the charts that I mentioned. So what I did, everyone, is I split the Cardinals charts down to after Murray started playing. Did you know Kyler Murray had a 30% slot target rate from, last season, whatever you want to call it, when he came back after week 10? A 30% slot target. Greg Dortch has a pop to get 5, 6, 7 TDs. We've seen him go for 8 or 9 in this scheme. I cannot believe it's 2.5. It's at minus 135, minus 140. To me, it's like the auto smash. I'm going to be going up the ladder myself because I think I saw 6 catches. Hold on. I got it right here. Okay. 5 catches is 375. 6 catches is plus 850. Come on, let's go. 6 catches plus 850. That's a broken line. There is that implied probability is not in line with reality. So while we can snack on the reception ladders, everybody, go get it.
All right. So I love that question. And one of the things that's great is so I tend to be super numbers focused, the human wet blanket, not super imaginative in what I'm thinking about in terms of the range of outcomes. And what I like is that you have the ability to kind of think about in the extreme, what could happen in this situation. So I haven't projected for 2.6, I'm in line, but I can see the upside scenario that you've laid out there. And Dortch was getting targeted heavily.
That's okay. Median, you round it up. We're right there. Remember, when you play a plus 850, we're on the right side of the bell curve, right, Ron? Yes. I understand we're on the far side of the bell curve. I think he was racking up those reception totals with Moore on the field last year because they play a lot of double slot. Again, Murray kind of has the happy feet sometimes. He likes to get rid of it. Again, we'll see. But I do feel pretty strong about the 3. The 8. All right, the 6 might have been a stretch, but I feel good about the 3.
All right, so here we go. This is a disgusting question that shows that this person is truly in the fantasy streets here. PPR, Zach Ertz, Johnny Munt, and Colby Parkinson. These are names Zach Ertz. Obviously, people know who he is, but they probably forget that he's even in the league at this point. And then the other names, Colby Parkinson, Johnny Munt, even some hardcore football fans might not know who these guys are. I lean towards Zach Ertz. I wrote him up, highlighted him in the Freedman's Favorites article this week. I think there's a real chance that he's the number 2 pass catcher within that offense, especially with the departure of Jahan Dotson in the offseason or the preseason rather. Zach Ertz being healthy, Zach Ertz having familiarity with the Cliff Kingsbury offense from their time together with the Cardinals. Yeah, I'm going with Ertz. But like, would it be a surprise if any of these other guys, if it's Parkinson, if it's Mont, it wouldn't be a surprise, especially because Zach Ertz is like an old and slow catch and fall specialist at this point in his career. But I would still go with Ertz.
Man, my gut was Parkinson, but after you made that pretty compelling argument, I think that's the answer. Because again, Parkinson, there's no way he's any better than the fourth option on any given play. But
Yeah.
I was just thinking, all right, it's a decent offense and there's a lot of passing going on, and they throw it to the tight end. I went to check, and Stafford's tight end target rate was actually pretty low last year. It was only 15%, which is very low.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you nailed this. Man, as gross as that is, again, you have to see it. I know a lot of people were very high on Sinnott, but
yeah,
it's very difficult to step into the tight end role as a rookie. We've seen a couple of them, Matt. I think people now think that's the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think we may have seen a couple of exceptions to the rule a little closer in time and space than we're used to. So I think I didn't think we'd be talking about Ertz.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I will say Ertz, Parkinson, Munt, the correct answer is like none of them really. Like if you can, I like Ertz as like a streamer.
Yeah, you need a new hobby. Kind of desperate.
If you're desperate. Yeah. But like, man, hopefully there's someone else you can grab on waivers with a decent chance of outperforming these three guys. All right. Let's cleanse the palate by talking about some guys who actually might score points. Terry McLaurin, who, obviously should be the number one pass catcher there in Washington, and then Brian Thomas Jr. I feel like I know what I'm getting out of McLaurin. And I do think he's got a pretty high ceiling and a decent floor now. With the quarterback situation, like he's got the best quarterback of his career, and he's had like 1,000 yards receiving every year anyway. So like he feels like another version of kind of like DJ Moore before he got Caleb Williams. So anyway, Terry McLaurin, easy for me as the guy that I would rather have over Brian Thomas.
Yeah, agreed. Solid, locked in. Not only solid, locked in number one every snap roll, also like the clear first option. Where Thomas, we already talked about. Maybe he's 2, maybe he's 2.5, right? We're unsure what's going to happen with Christian Kirk. Yeah. If Kirk is playing every down in 2 wide sets, Thomas might be the odd man out while Davis is on 2 feet, and then you'll be upset. Yeah, that to me, again, it's not to pick anybody out because that's why they ask. This is a good example of getting too cute with rookies and stuff. You go with F1, he's the trusted commodity.
Yeah, exactly. You know what he is. And like I will say, like, even if I weren't heavily influenced by my absolute love for Jaden Daniels, it would still be for me, Terry McLaurin. All right, we have a question here. Flex, full PPR, Ridley, Palmer. I'm assuming that this is Joshua Palmer and Ramondre. Where are you? So we're looking just for one guy here. I know that we talked about Ramondre Stevenson earlier with a flex question. For me, this comes down to Stevenson versus Calvin Ridley. I think that they are pretty close. Just looking at the start sit tool that we have, they're neck and neck in our rankings here. So I probably lean a little bit towards Ramondre because I prefer in the flex to have like the kind of quote unquote stability of like running back touches. And I do think, as we mentioned earlier, that he has the 3-down skill set to where even if the Patriots get behind, Stevenson could end up getting a decent chunk of the workload as a pass catcher. Calvin Ridley in Tennessee, I will just say I am super pessimistic on the Titans this year. And there are other guys that conceivably could get targets before Ridley. You've got DeAndre Hopkins. You've also got Tyler Boyd there. I don't think I'm on Ridley in this spot. Prefer Stevenson, but it's not a slam dunk. What do you think, John?
Yeah, believe it or not, I actually had Ridley theoretically ahead when the Hopkins news came out. They're confident he's going to play. They didn't say every snap, but they're confident he's going to play a full, like a starter's load. That took Ridley down because again, the floor for Levis is very low, and they actually, it's a real life good thing for the football team for the Titans. They brought in actual weapons. But yeah, we don't know what that's going to look like, the distribution, if there's enough to even feed multiple targets. Yeah, I would want to see Tennessee first. Ramondre, again, I think feels pretty locked in for 18 opportunities, right? 18 total carries and receptions. I think you got to go with that.
All right, next question here. Full PPR flex, JSN, Chase Brown, or Andre Iosivas? I mean, so look, we've got Brown, we've got Iosivas as teammates here. I think it is maybe closer between Jackson Smith and Jigba and Chase Brown. I'm probably going JSN in this spot. We talked about this question basically earlier in comparing Iosivas to like the range of wide receivers where we might start kind of flipping him above them. Right now, I would probably go with JSN, but if we get the news, assuming we get the news that Higgins is out, I do move Iosivas up, but I probably still go with JSN ahead of him.
Yeah, I'm locked in there. We mentioned the playing time and all the routes, but I think you nailed it. If you do get the Higgins out and you have a chance to be the number 2 at Cincinnati, you take that.
All right. So just a reminder for everyone who is now joining the show. We are a little bit over halfway through, started at 9, going to 10:30 a.m. Eastern, answering all of your fantasy questions, or as many of the fantasy questions as we can get to. We'll try to pick up the pace here a little bit so we can get to as many of them as possible. If we don't get to them, reminder, you can go to our start sit tool. You can go to the rankings. We have free rankings on the site that you can check out there to hopefully get some fantasy insight. All right, Raheem Mostert or David Montgomery? I'm assuming that this is David Montgomery, unless there's a lesser Montgomery that I've forgotten about. Do you have any thoughts on this one, John?
Yeah, for me, it's probably Montgomery. Again, we want the TD equity on the team with the highest projected team total. Sometimes for me, it's that easy. I know most are kind of checks that box, but a little bit less. Plus, I think we have to wonder about Gibbs, his workload. Again, I know they said he's okay, but he is coming off a bit of an injury where the Dolphins have, 2 kind of explosive other options. So yeah, I'd go with Montgomery. Plus, he's so locked in for the end zone. He's very hard to turn away, especially the draft capital that you spent on him. You got to roll with him.
Yeah, I think I would go with David Montgomery, although I will say like it's close. They're in the same tier. And as you mentioned, they're similar type of players, both like touchdown guys on high scoring offenses. I think Montgomery has more of the certainty of the locked in goal line role, where Raheem Mostert, we think he probably has the goal line role, but Devon Achane, if he just explodes and has like CJ2K type of production this year, Mostert's goal line role could just evaporate. So I feel a little bit safer about David Montgomery. That is the way that I would go. The next question here, Terry McLaurin or Deontay Johnson or Zamir White. So we have McClaurin we talked about earlier. Haven't talked about Deontay Johnson yet or Zamir White. And so this, kind of thinking a little bit of apples and oranges in terms of the type of production we'd get out of these guys. But any direction you're leaning here. Does anyone else not hear John?
Oh, sorry, that was me. I was
okay
making bodily noises. So I'm just kidding. So for me, I think you gotta scratch White because the third down usage is a bit scary. A team we're not expecting to be ahead a lot in the Raiders. We would want to see that first. Not say he's not rosterable, but he's not in this caliber. Especially McClaurin is a wide receiver too. The Deontay Johnson thing is interesting, Matt. Everyone tried to sell us on him towards the end of camp. I came in with a no Panthers ever kind of thing, but Deontay's earned targets everywhere he goes. The fact that it's McClaurin, I'm still going with my guy F1 though.
Yeah,
but do you think is there light for the Panthers here? Everyone they tried to sell us right on the Canales stuff, right? There's a lot going on there.
Look, okay, quick aside on the Panthers. One of my favorite bets that people can still make is Dave Canales 20-1 to win Coach of the Year. Because if you look at the Panthers to make the playoffs, those odds are plus 750 in that neighborhood. If the Panthers make the playoffs, that means they go from the worst team in the league, a team that won 2 games last year, to a team that wins 9 or 10 games. If that happens, Canales, I'm not saying he's a lock to win Coach of the Year, but he's in the top.
He's a lock.
He's in the top 3 for sure.
Matt, they were an embarrassment last year. He's a lock. If they make the playoffs, he's a lock. They were an embarrassment last year.
Yeah. So that's something that I would look at. And I'll just say the bull case, you have still the guy who's the number 1 quarterback in his class last year entering the draft. He should progress in his second season with Canales as the guy who can help kind of revitalize his career. They brought in Deontay Johnson. They brought in a rookie in Xavier Legette, who maybe won't contribute right away, but maybe in the second half of the season can carve out a role. They brought in 2 offensive guards to help bolster the interior of the offensive line. They brought in a new rookie tight end who has more playmaking ability than the guys they had there previously. Like you can see like, and they're in a weak division as well. So just kind of big picture for the season, the Panthers probably makes sense to be a little bit bullish on them just based on how bad they were last year. I could see the market overreacting. And for this game specifically in week 1, Panthers +4, that is kind of the sharper side of the market right now, just based on what I'm seeing and, conversations I'm hearing, other bettors talking about it. That's the side I'm on. I have a bet on Panthers, I believe +4.5 in the bet tracker. I think that number still might be bettable at +4.
Does Deontay beat out F1 though? I don't know about that.
He does. I will say he doesn't beat out McClaurin, but I just want to say, look, Deontay Johnson, he's someone I'm still interested in for the season. And we might see the best version of Deontay Johnson we've ever seen, given the quarterback situation that he had earlier in Pittsburgh. All right, moving on here. Moss or Brian Robinson. So Zach Moss as the guy who might be splitting time with Chase Brown, might be playing behind Chase Brown in the backfield, or Brian Robinson as a guy who, might be splitting work with Austin Eckler. It's kind of hard to know exactly how those backfields are going to split. I think those two guys are very much in a tier with each other, and we have them ranked and projected in that way. And so, like, I would say this is not like, oh, easily Robinson, easily Moss. Like, there's interpretation here. Which way are you going?
Man, I have, if you're going by my rankings, I would have to go Moss 10 times out of 10. And
okay.
what I think it is, again, I was pretty clear about this. I think the calculation is the touchdown equity for the Bengals, I think is making the difference. I scaled back my Brian Robinson stuff a touch with the drum beats for Eckler towards the end of camp.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like, I thought maybe I don't know, again, I didn't mean to write the guy off because he had the ankle injuries, and those ruin guys for that season. And sometimes they come back healthy and they're fine. If Eckler and Jaden Daniels are going to riff, you could see where they would want to get Eckler a lot of touches because he can kind of protect the quarterback, not just physically protect him, but sometimes it's protect, meaning that he'll know when to catch and release. He'll know when to break assignment to do the right thing. So, yeah, I'd probably go with Moss and hope for the TDs for the Bengals.
Yeah. All right, next question here. Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer, and DeAndre Swift as a flex. Who to start? For me, this is easily DeAndre Swift. I think he has the chance really to be the lead back with the Bears, and it might not even be all that close. And if that Bears offense is as explosive as we think it could be, Swift could be getting a decent amount of work as a pass catcher, and then maybe some goal line work too. So very much like DeAndre Swift over Josh Palmer and Keon Coleman, neither of whom has a lock to be like the number one receiver on his team. Whereas with Swift, I think we have a pretty good sense of what his role is likely to be.
Yeah, that's a great job. It's funny. This is a good question because I like when the questions push the guys that I like, because I'm on the other side. I'm with you. I'm with Swift. I liked Palmer this draft season because of the potential. It was more of the price and where he was going. I'm not absolutely sold he's walking out of here with 8 targets. So until I do know that, you got to go with the TDs and Swift and the possibility of he's everything Matt said.
All right. Just got some news here. Joey Chestnut is doing a bratwurst challenge at halftime of the Bengals game. So that might be the most interesting thing that we actually see out of that game if it ends up being a Bengals blowout. But all right. So, all right. Need 2 out of Bo Nix, A-Rod. So Aaron Rodgers putting all of this in.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So Justin Fields, and then the next running back start, next RB start, 1 Ford, Moss, or Chase Brown. All right, let's start with the quarterback situation. So, Aaron Rodgers coming in, off of the injury. Justin Fields, let's assume for the sake of this question that Justin Fields is starting for the Steelers here, and it won't end up being Russell Wilson. In that situation, I am probably going Aaron Rodgers for sure as the guy I'm locking in. And then after him, Justin Fields versus Bo Nix. I still go with Fields. He's got that running ability. I don't have a lot of respect for that Falcons defense. And Fields, is not as if he is coming in cold. Like, he's been practicing with the team throughout a lot of the offseason, the preseason, and then this week. And so he's basically prepped as if he's the starter, even though he is the backup. So I do like that situation for him. And he's got the running ability that Bo Nix simply does not have. Also, Bo Nix, the matchup with Seattle, they weren't good last year. It's a new system that they have coming in, so hard to know exactly what the upside is for Bo Nix. So Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields, those are the two guys I'm going with.
Yeah. For me, Fields is obviously a smash. I like the Rodgers thing. That I just had like a fantasy baseball flashback. When you take two flawed players and put them together and then kind of split it. So you're hoping that, Rodgers throws for 400, Fields runs for 100, and that way you had two guys go for 250, and you hope this kind of split the difference. Yeah, Knicks, again, there's just too many uncertainties. There's a chance that you're going to be going with Knicks over Rodgers in the future. Again, the statue quarterbacks can kind of hurt you depending if they are running the ball inside the 5. But yeah, I think you nailed it, Freedman. And then for the running backs, for me, it's just Moss because I think we're getting the touchdowns right now. Everyone's in love with Chase Brown. There is a possibility he's just the 2-minute guy. He's just the pass down back guy where, it's you don't want him over the starter.
Mm-hmm. All right. Shout out Waz, who just said, good morning. Check out Waz's rankings at FantasyLife for free. Waz, one of the best rankers in the business. Be sure to check him out. All right. Caleb or Lawrence this week. And I got to say, I really like Caleb Williams. In general, he's one of the guys that I wrote up in Freedman's favorites this week. Trevor Lawrence, was injured some of last year. And so I think it's harder to hold against him some of what he did or didn't do last year because of the injury. But Caleb Williams, I mean, look, he actually might be the prince who is promised instead of Trevor Lawrence. And he's got all those wide receivers around him, good infrastructure, and he's got the running ability. I would go with Caleb Williams.
Man, I want to go with Caleb also, but my projections have Lawrence a little bit higher. And I think maybe that even makes sense. Like maybe from a median standpoint, I do think the floor might be a little bit higher for Lawrence. Just more consistency. He's done it before. But I think, again, if Williams hits the ground running like we have seen some guys do, with, again, the surrounding environment, Matt, I heard you talk about this during the week. I don't know if we've ever seen a number one pick airdropped into like an ideal environment, like not just a pass catching weapon. He's got multiple pass catching weapons. He's got a first round talent in the wide receiver room. He's got multiple running backs that are excellent. They upgraded the offensive line. So there's a lot going on there. Today, for me, it's probably Lawrence because, again, I think we might be able to pick on the Miami secondary, but for me, it's Williams greater than Sutton.
All right, one quick thing I'll say on this. So I have Lawrence ranked number 10, Williams ranked number 11. So in theory, I should be going with Lawrence. What I will say is that enough of the other FantasyLife rankers have Williams ahead of Lawrence to where it makes me think about it a little bit. And since I basically have Williams and Lawrence as a toss-up, if I'm going to kind of rely on the good words of my colleagues here, I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards Williams, and we have him as the higher rated guy within our system here at FantasyLife. All right, the next one here, Brandon Aiyuk with a reduced workload, Brian Thomas Jr. or Deontay Johnson. I still like Aiyuk, even though he's got the reduced workload, even though he has the tough matchup, he's still like Brandon Aiyuk. Like you still have to start him basically every week when you have him. And there's so much uncertainty with what Brian Thomas is going to be in that offense. I believe Deontay Johnson, talked about him earlier. I think he's going to have a good season, but he could still draw shadow coverage from Marshawn Lattimore this week and end up not having that good of a production. I think this is pretty cleanly Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah. And not to turn to draft capital, but it's like week one,
Right.
You're especially if there are any questions with McCaffrey, right? Any bit that the biggest eater at the table is not going to eat, that should slide down to Aiyuk. So yeah, for me, don't be too cute for me. It's Aiyuk, sure.
Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson or DeAndre Swift. I'm probably going with Ramondre, but it's not like it's a slam dunk. But I prefer Ramondre.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I think, man, yeah, it's close because I think the Bears are so much better than the Patriots. And normally I've been leaning into the team totals and the offensive contextual environments and stuff. But no, I think this one, because I really kind of dug in on Ramondre. He's one of my highest roster players for whatever many hundreds of best ball teams, because I think we could get that dual threat ability that we saw the season before last. And I said it before, it could be the engine of the offense.
Yeah. All right. Terry McLaurin or Aaron Jones in the flex half PPR. This one's interesting to me. I mean, okay, we have as a staff, we have McClaurin as the higher rated player, but this is kind of comparing the production you're going to get out of a running back, which is more projectable, versus what you could get out of the wide receiver, which has the wider range of outcomes. Maybe it's a game where there just aren't all that many targets for whatever reason that floated Terry McLaurin, and he's awesome, but hey, he doesn't end up having the production you think. It's close. It's close for me. We have Terry McLaurin, but if you want kind of the higher floor of running back production, I think it's fine to go with Aaron Jones.
Yeah, for me, it's Jones, because I think we're going to see O'Connell try and protect Darnold the best of his ability, and we've seen Aaron Jones kind of do just that. Right? He's very good from the backfield, being able to do the catch and release I mentioned before, also in protection, also just straight running the ball. So I think while Aaron Jones is on two legs in this system, I said another guy I was really high on in draft season. I think Jones starts it. Today. Me and Dwayne were actually going back and forth quite a bit. We did a live draft stream. He had Mostert over Aaron Jones, and I was pretty firmly Aaron Jones in that one.
All right, so we've got here the question of the backfield for the LA Chargers. J.K. Dobbins or Gus the Bus Edwards, flex spot, PPR. Man, like, throw your hands in the air. I will say on the Thursday pod that I did with Ian and Dwayne talking about rankings, Dwayne made a case for J.K. Dobbins. And I agree with the case. If you're looking for upside, I think Dobbins is the guy to give it to you. Like, if one of these guys ends up having like 20 points this week, I think it's Dobbins. Gus Edwards, I think probably has more carries and maybe has the slightly higher floor, like the higher median. But I think the ceiling is J.K. Dobbins. So I lean towards Gus Edwards if I'm just looking for kind of the carries and the built-in floor. But if you're looking for ceiling, I would go Dobbins.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything there. I'd expand just a little bit to the pragmatic, maybe, is because of the game script that at least I'm expecting, the public is expecting. I think this is the Edwards game, right? We're expecting divisional rock fight. Raiders not going to do much. I'm not expecting much from the Chargers at all. As an offense, I think they'd be very bland and boring. I also don't know what I think about the defense. If we thought they were going to be behind a touchdown or two, then I think it's wheels up Dobbins. We could see, Gus Bus might not see much of that. Mm-hmm. I know Matt's favorite bet last year going under those Edwards receiving props. Matt, I'm going to my grave thinking about him galloping for that 83-yard touchdown or whatever. Just absolutely crazy stuff. That was the craziest stuff of my life, man.
Yeah. All right. So just the quick aside, last year, one of the bets I made in 1 week was Gus Edwards under 0.5 receiving yards.
Yes,
and that was where Lamar just randomly turned one play into a throw to Gus Edwards that was not scripted. And Gus went for like 80 something yards on a long receiving touchdown. My life last year. I can't
believe it. That was awesome. All right. Oh my gosh.
PPR, Hopkins, Mostert, or McConkey. Like McConkey, but he's, not locked in to be the number one receiver on his offense. DeAndre Hopkins, I'm not super optimistic about what we see out of that Titans offense. Raheem Mostert could have the goal line role in one of the best offenses in the league. They're at home in week 1. Absolutely love Mostert as the guy here.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think maybe in a week or two, if we were to revisit this, we might be talking about DeAndre Hopkins, right? If he's kind of reassumed health and the full workload. Something I noticed last year, they love going to Hopkins off the play action because I think Levis needs the spacing. Mm-hmm. He also has a big arm. So they've used Hopkins in that manner where he's kind of maybe turning into this like 1 for 45 and 1 guy. If it gets there, but for right now, I think you nailed it, Matt. It's Mostert for me. Yeah.
All right, 20 minutes left in the show. We will try to get to as many of your start sit questions as we can. The Fantasy Life Week 1 live stream. I'm Freedman. He's Laghezza. Prescott or Burrow without the wide receiver. So I'm assuming that means there aren't any stacking situations to take into account here. So Dak Prescott or Burrow without his wide receivers. Got it. Okay. That makes much more sense in terms of how I read that. Okay. I probably go with Dak now that I'm thinking about it, because I do think, man, that's tough. I think that like the Cowboys are still going to not be able to, but they will be throwing the ball. Like the Cowboys offense functions through them passing the ball. They have a tough matchup. They're on the road. So less than ideal circumstances, but Joe Burrow without T Higgins and with a limited Jamar Chase in a game where they are big home favorites, Burrow might not need to throw the ball all that much. They just might control the game through the ground. And so it's close. I probably go with Dak, but man, I'm not convicted in that.
Yeah, no easy answer because the matchups are so difficult. You'd love to see the Browns on one side of the triple beam balance and say, well, I'm definitely going the other way. The Patriots, no picnic either. I mean, again, my projections, I have Burrow by a hair. But again, when we're talking about half a point median projections, we're talking about literally one completion for, 25 yards or something like that. So I hear you. I think I still go Burrow because I worry about all the weapons, although, man, the chase is limited. It's tough. But yeah, I think I go Burrow by a hair.
All right, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about this more, yeah, Joe, home favorite, go with Joe Burrow. Dak could have a terrible game. Like it's not unimaginable for Dak to have like, oh man, who could have seen Dak Prescott throwing 3 interceptions on the road outdoors against like the best home defense in the league last year? Like, okay, yeah, I'll go with Burrow. I'll go with Burrow, but I don't feel great about it. I'll say that. All right, should I start Aiyuk? And if not, Pickens or Scary Terry? So 3 guys here. We've talked about Terry McClaurin quite a bit. We do like him on the show here, like him for the season. Pickens we haven't mentioned yet, but I think significant upside with him. Of course, questions about the quarterback position and if Justin Fields is the starter this week. I think that it's like not great news for George Pickens. Just because of the running that we normally see out of Fields. Brandon Aiyuk, we know what he can do. Aiyuk is the guy that I'm going with here, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, me too. I think Aiyuk is the guy. Although, funny enough, I thought when I ran my Pittsburgh projections, Pickens would go down, which kind of makes sense moving to Fields. But when I started adjusting the target rates for his number 1 wide receiver, like Fields is kind of a one read guy.
True. That's true.
One read and run, like a one read and run kind of guy. So for people that have Pickens, just don't panic it if it's a Fields thing. But I think because it's Aiyuk, you go that way. But Pickens might be okay, right? He might get like the special treatment. It's not they did anything else in that room. I'm actually over. This was before Fields went down, but I was over the reception total for Pickens because again they have Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson.
Yeah,
not much competition for targets.
Yeah, all right. Full PPR flex: Deontay Johnson or Javonte Williams. Again, this is sort of like, do you want the more projectable running back production or maybe the more upside that comes with the wide receiver? But even then, I prefer Deontay Johnson. He's pretty cleanly the higher ranked player that we have this week. Javonte Williams, tough situation as a big road dog going in Seattle. Deontay Johnson, I just prefer him in the spot, and we across the board have him as the significantly higher ranked player.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm in line there. I think this is right where we're starting to talk about Deontay Johnson, though, and I'm glad that he finally came out on top because there is a real case for him. He's a legitimate target earner.
Yes,
it's whether or not can they piece those other things together, right? Can they get Young the space he needs? And listen, Canales has been the guy to do it. So yeah, in that case, I'm going with Johnson. You're going to need Denver to be a favorite to really feel great about Williams. I don't know how often that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I will just say for people who are playing Survivor, thinking about Javonte Williams on the road going against the Seahawks, I think, are probably the best Survivor pick that you can make this week because they're big favorites and they don't have much future value. Like they will probably never be favored by as much as they are this week. In tough division. So it's like, hey, I know some people are looking at the Bengals as big options, but the Bengals have some other games coming on the schedule where they're big favorites. The same with the Bills. I think Seahawks, for everyone playing Survivor, I think the Seahawks are the pick for this week.
Matt, let me cut you right there because that's a perfect time to mention our article that comes out every Thursday on NBA Fantasy Life. Yours truly and Coach Gene Clemens working on a Survivor piece. The reason why I had the big Cheshire Cat smile on my face was you know me, I did my nerdy thing. We ran all our aggregate expectations, all the projections. I like to convert the money line into implied probabilities to help readers kind of visualize the board. I know I'm stiffing around the target here, but I came to the same conclusion. I warned people that Buffalo, who's predicted to be very highly owned, I think they could lose outright. I like the Cardinals. I like the Cardinals team total over, even if they don't win. I'm also worried about the Saints. They're a little bit flawed. We mentioned Carolina, the stingy defense. My pick again was the Seahawks. So I think that's the team. You nailed it. I think they're home, can win. They're facing a debut quarterback. That's also something that we like to look for, right? And you mentioned the future value. Just checking all the boxes for me. It's the Seahawks, for real.
All right, so some quick update here. Per Mark Caboli, Russell Wilson just got on the field, so maybe Wilson will be warming up to kind of see if he's able to go. So, we'll keep track of that. Everyone, follow at Mark Caboli for updates after the show. Yeah. All right. So next question here: PPR, should I flex Tajay Spears? We haven't talked about him yet. Jalen Warren or Jacoby Myers? 3 guys we haven't talked about yet on the show. Not a slam dunk for me, but I think it's Warren versus Spears. And I'm going with Warren. I think he's the better player, the more established player within that offense. And man, I mean, these could be 2 nasty offenses that we see going here with the Steelers or the Titans, but Warren is, Warren is the guy that we have higher ranked here, going with Warren.
Yeah, I'd probably go, if it's PPR, I think I would actually go Myers. This would have been Warren by a smash. If Wilson starts, for me, it's Warren smash.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the field start reduces those receptions that we're going to need to get Warren across the line. Spears, I worry about him being on the short side of that platoon because he feels like just a lesser version of Tony Pollard. Again, I don't think Myers is some kind of smash. I think Myers, Minshew is a replacement level QB. Myers plays every single snap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to be great, but I think he's probably a pop for like 5 for 45. I think we can maybe get him 4 for 44 or something. And that might be all you get, because there's not a lot of touchdowns here either.
Yeah. All right. So next question here. I think we talked about Stevenson versus Swift earlier, but the question, how do we feel about those two, considering the running back rooms and the game script of how their teams may be down throughout the year? So kind of more of a question about like the season versus just week 1. I don't think it's going to be great for Stevenson long-term. Like the Patriots, I have them projected to be the worst team in the league. If you look at their Vegas win totals, Vegas, the sportsbooks have them as the worst team in the league. DeAndre Swift, I think he's on a team that could, surprise people, or not really even surprise. Like their win total is 8.5, like people are kind of expecting the Bears to be around average, and their offense, I think, has upside for much more considering the potential talent that they have there. And if Swift is the number 1 running back there, I mean, he could fall into the end zone 10 times pretty easily. So I would go with Swift over Stevenson, just thinking about the trajectory of the season. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, today I might go Stevenson by a hair.
Yeah.
To me, long-term prospects not even close. The ceiling case for Swift is in the top 3 overall. He's shown that kind of diversity if he gets the volume. I don't think the environment is there for New England to get Ramondre there. He might be a great RB2 for fantasy, sucking up kind of PPR stuff at the end of games. He absolutely could do that and get whatever few touchdowns they score. But yeah, for talking prospect and ceiling case, I don't think it's close.
Yeah. All right. Who are your highest roster exposure players this year? John, I know that you are in the best ball streets in a way that I simply am not. I try to enjoy my summer a little bit more. It's just tough to be, drafting that much, knowing that you got the season coming up. But I understand it. Best ball leagues are fun. Yeah. But anyway, highest exposure player that you have so far this year.
Okay. Quarterbacks are going to be the guys that run and the guys that are going towards the back of that. So very easy. Jaden Daniels, Kyler Murray. In fact, very high in the Cardinals in general. I've talked about this. I have Trey McBride as my number 1 tight end overall. Mm-hmm. So for me, I've been seeing a player going in the 4th round all year that we were just paying the 7th overall pick for in Travis Kelce. I don't see how they're that much different. I know the Mahomes thing's tips the scale, but again, he's a 4th rounder. For wideouts, I really do try and spread out. But let's say guys, guys with high potential that were going later on. So I have a lot of like A.D. Mitchell on the Colts, right? You could get a big pop, and he was really cheap. I don't like to pay up for the guys like a Dunze because I worry 3rd guy, they're going to run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Again, just listening to me, you could probably see where I am. Again, it's pretty split, the wide receiver stuff. I don't think anyone really stands out. Like, I don't know if there's a wide receiver that I'm like, if he goes off, like, I'm attaching. If Trey McBride goes off, I know my teams are moving up. If Kyler Murray goes nuts, I know my teams are going up. Other than that, and like running backs, because they fell, I'm very much in this Ramondre, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris. I was eating from those plates a lot. So those are going to be my guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll echo a lot of what you said there. At quarterback, it was Jaden Daniels, no question. He's the guy that I wanted. At tight end, I was very happy taking at the bottom of a tier where I thought like Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts, as often the guys who were like tight end 5 and 6.
Yep.
I was very happy to get those guys instead of going with someone like Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta. I like Trey McBride as well, but my general feeling was I can probably pass on McBride, and I feel good enough about Dalton Kincaid to where I'll probably take Kincaid at a discount there. At running back, similar situation to you where, if you're not getting one of those top 3, then you're probably waiting at the position for a little bit. And so a healthy amount of Joe Mixon as someone who I think can sort of come into that Texans offense right away and basically be the guy he has been for the entirety of his career and, get 10 touchdowns, 12 to, 1,400 yards. That sounds pretty decent to me. So at running back, that was someone I prioritized. All right. Next question here. Half PPR, Curtis Samuel, Jalen Warren, or Gabe Davis. We haven't talked about Gabe Davis yet. We did talk briefly about Jalen Warren, and we have talked a little bit about Curtis Samuel earlier in the show. What are your thoughts here?
Man, again, it would have been Warren. If it's Russell Wilson starts, I'm going Jalen Warren here, so you got to watch. With Justin Fields, I think he just falls off. I would go with Curtis Samuel because, again, I'm worried Gabe Davis is the 3rd best receiver in that room. It's just a matter of how long it takes the Jaguars to kind of figure that out. Davis is just never – he's just never been the guy that we want him to be. We want him to be something that he's not been. I think the Bills made a proactive play to bring in Samuel, and Curtis Samuel would be a part of that game plan at least.
All right, yeah, I'm probably going with Warren there. I think almost regardless of who ends up starting at quarterback. Keenan Allen or Joshua Palmer or Khalil Shakir starting 1. Where are you on this?
Man, this one's tough. Again, it's not Allen. For me, it's either Palmer or Shakir because I'm looking for the guy that I think could go like 800 and score. My brain is telling me Palmer, but I don't know if the Chargers have it in them. Am I being an ageist right here? You got the big smile on.
Yeah, no, I think this is pretty cleanly Keenan Allen. I think already he's the number 2 receiver in that offense. Maybe he won't be at the end of the season, but right now he's the number 2 receiver. I think he's healthy enough. We have him ranked looking at flex rankings.
Isn't he fat though? I heard he's fat.
Look, we will see. We will see.
But that was a thing, man. We're so starved for news in the offseason. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, no, but I think this is Keenan Allen pretty cleanly. Even though he's not going to be the number 1 receiver in his offense, and maybe Josh Palmer is, maybe Khalil Shakir is, I still think we have a pretty high established floor with Keenan Allen, so I would go with him. Guillotine. All right, shout out the Guillotine League that we have going on at Fantasy Life. An awesome format. People should be sure to check it out. All right. So Guillotine League, PPR, Dobbins or Ty Chandler. Man, I mean, this is kind of nasty, although I understand how you are in this position because you're in the Guillotine League. But man, we have Ty Chandler rated just a little bit higher by a hair, but I would probably go with Dobbins because with Guillotine, all you need is not to be the worst in the league. And the difference between Ty Chandler and J.K. Dobbins at their floor, I don't think makes that much of a difference, but I think Dobbins has the way higher ceiling. Ty Chandler, no chance he's the number 1 running back over Aaron Jones. There is a chance J.K. Dobbins actually is the number 1 running back over Gus Edwards. I would go with Dobbins.
You absolutely nailed it. I just wanted to make sure people know I'm playing for the first time. It's actually really cool. The idea is floor. If someone says Guillotine, it's just play for the floor to not get eliminated, like Matt said. Then the team that loses, those players go into the pool to be bid on in free agency. Really, really cool format that we're doing over at NBA Life also, which is
a fantastic format. Everyone should be sure to check that out. And the great thing is it can go any week. So if you're not in a Guillotine League now, you can do a draft, get in a Guillotine League starting in week 1, starting in week 2. It can spin up. So, if you missed it, you didn't really miss it. You can keep on going. All right. Next question here. Jake Ferguson or David Njoku. They're close. I prefer Ferguson. I mean, they're going against each other in the same matchup, Cowboys at Browns. I prefer Ferguson, so heavily targeted in the end zone last year. And what we saw out of David Njoku last year, a lot of his production came with Joe Flacco, who's no longer with the team. So I'm going with Ferguson.
Yeah, me too, 100%. And Joke was a guy that I like coming into the best ball season. I was telling myself this is going to be my number 1 or number 2 most roster tight end. He was the top scoring fantasy tight end from week 8 to the end, but I'm so worried about Watson. I also mentioned the Cowboys being the horse drawing. There's a really good chance Jake Ferguson is the second option on a prolific passing offense. The ceiling case for Ferguson is the number 1 tight end overall. So I think until we at least know what Watson is and what the Browns are, I think you go Ferguson for sure.
All right. I think this is going to be our final question. We have 3 minutes left here. All right. So start 2. Chase, I'm going to assume this is Jamar Chase. You're looking at this here. Chase, DJ Moore, Stephon Diggs, Godwin, and Mixon or James Conner this week.
Holy cow.
So I'm going to assume there's like Mixon or Conner as one question. And then starting 2 is Jamar Chase, DJ Moore, Diggs, Godwin. So two of those 4. So let's start with the wide receivers. Where are you going there?
Wide receivers going to be DJ Moore. Got to be. It's a clear A1 opposed to the other guys who are not bad. But I think when you're deciding with a guy like Moore, he's the target hog.
All right. And then there are 2 of them here.
And the running back for me, this one's rough. I was such a big James Conner guy. That was a best ball thing because I was kind of worried about Mixon's durability. I think being tied to Houston this weekend is where you want to be. I'd probably go Mixon and Moore.
Yeah, so I'll say this week if you're starting 2 at wide receiver, I like Jamar Chase, even with the illness situation with him being limited. I still like Jamar Chase, and I would go with DJ Moore as the second wide receiver there. I like Chris Godwin, wrote him up in Freedman's favorites, but prefer DJ Moore. Stephon Diggs, he's got a lot of potential, but he might be the number 3 wide receiver in that offense. So you kind of have to question. I just want to see, maybe let's wait a week just to see what he looks like within that offense. And then I think I agree with you. Mixon versus James Conner. James Conner, I think I like a lot of his ability for the season, but James Conner as a road dog, not a great situation to be in, even though he's like, I think still like a legit workhorse. I'm going with Mixon here as the guy who has the potential to fall into the end zone as the main running back for the Texans. And I think a matchup going against the Colts, I think pretty good matchup. And of course they're favored. So, all right, John, this has been awesome. Everyone should be sure to check out the Betting Life newsletter, which John writes. How many days a week? Is 5 days a week? I'm doing
5 days a week, but we shifted off of Monday through Friday. So I have, I get the primetime man. I'm on the marquee now. I'm going to be doing the Sunday one. So you follow us every day, but we are covering 7 days a week now. So I'm on 5, but it's been, fingers crossed, been doing so well that it's 7 days a week, free right into your email box every single day. And like they say, if it's free, it's for me.
Yeah. All right. I like that. So everyone be sure to check that out. Of course, we've got a lot of free content. We have free rankings on the site. We've got the FantasyLife premium package, which everyone should check out, highly discounted in terms of just like the value that you are getting with that subscription for the price that it is. We have 2 tiers for, people who maybe you just want fantasy. If you want other stuff, we got the fantasy and the sports betting stuff attached to it. Be sure to check out the free bet tracker that we have. I'm going to be looking at some props after we get off of the show, putting some props in there. So be sure to check out everything we have going at FantasyLife. For John Laghezza,